Hello, my name is Richard Hudson. I'm the editor-in-chief of Science Business, and I'd like to welcome you to this online conference about, well, the R&D aspect of Brexit. And the event we've called What's Next for the UK-EU Relations in Science and Technology. And to discuss that, we have a very interesting lineup of panelists, very much involved in this issue. Now, just to bring you back to a little bit of what has been going on here, on December 24th, some of you may remember that, was the UK and the EU finally reached an agreement. There was the so-called Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which set the terms for what happens after Brexit on many, not all, but most aspects of EU and UK relations. Among those aspects is, of course, research and innovation. And specifically in this agreement, there is language in which both sides say it is their intention for the UK to so-called associate or be an associate member of Horizon Europe, the 95.5 billion euro EU research and innovation program. The UK, of course, when it was a member, was a very active participant, indeed, just about tied with Germany on getting funds for its universities and tech companies and entrepreneurs and students out of this program. But varying by year between 11 and 13% of the total budget was what the UK was getting. Now, so there was this deal, but then what? Because many of the terms, many of the specific details as of December 24th had yet to be worked out. And that's what's happening now. Between now and over the next few weeks or months, we're going to be hearing more details about that exactly. But the key point to remember is, as a result of this agreement and what happens over the next coming weeks, the UK and its researchers and entrepreneurs will be full, normal members of the research and innovation program, and be able to compete for funding on an equal basis with their EU counterparts. That's important for international cooperation, obviously, in science and technology. So that's a quick primer for those of you who don't live with this every day that I would provide. And now to discuss this in more detail, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we're delighted to be joined by two people who are, in essence, the chief negotiators for what happens on Horizon Association. In Brussels, we have Signorazzo. She's the Deputy Director General for Research and Innovation at the European Commission. And from the UK government in London, we have Harriet Wallace. She is the Director for International Research and Innovation at the Ministry in the UK, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. So those are the two key counterparts. And then we will be joined after that by Christian Ehler, member of the European Parliament from Germany, and one of the two rapporteurs or key legislators moving the file forward on Horizon Europe. Julie Maxton, the Executive Director of the Royal Society, Ronald de Bruyn, the Director of the Cost Association, and Hilary Lappin-Scott, the President of the Federation of European Microbiological Societies. Well, that's quite a lineup on both sides of the channel. For those of you watching, for one thing, there is, of course, a hashtag. It is UK-EU Science, if you'd like to tweet. For those of you who are logged into our events platform, you can also put questions, which our people will gather, and we can relay them. And if you're not on the platform and you'd like to ask a question, you can also tweet at us, as we will have somebody watching that as well. So with that preamble, let's begin. Signe, let me start with you. What was agreed and what is yet to be agreed?
Good afternoon to everybody. Many thanks, Richard, for your kind introduction. Let me start by wishing everyone online a wonderful new year. This hopefully will be a year where we also see a renewed face-to-face interactions. 2021, as you said, also marks a new relationship between the EU and the UK, and I wish a happy and healthy beginning to this cooperation. However, before we turn to the future, I would like to highlight the elements that remain of this cooperation. What remains first are the global challenges that we all face. Brexit or not, we still need to address climate change. We still need to harness the digital revolution. We still need to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. And I could continue. The UK and the EU can and must join forces on these issues. What remains as well is our shared conviction that research and innovation are central to address these challenges. And we share the belief that this research needs to be based on excellence, where funding is awarded to the best idea. And both the UK's government's great commitment to science, which Harriet will certainly describe much better than I can, and also our own European policies put science and technology at the core of the response to the climate emergency as well as to the pandemic. What remains is also our shared history of cooperation. It is no secret that researchers and innovators from the UK performed extremely well in the previous program, and Richard also mentioned that. Just give a couple of figures. To date, UK entities participated more than 16,000 times and received more than 7.3 billion from Horizon 2020, which represents almost 12% of the total budget. Note that this percentage is lower than it used to be under the previous framework programs, namely the uncertainties that followed the Brexit vote unfortunately also deterred a number of cooperations. But the British science innovation community has maintained a remarkable success rate. If you look, for instance, UK's participation in the extremely competitive European Research Council calls, where they make up 17% of the total of applications, but receive the highest number of grants, a full 20% of the total. And I could continue on that. Now, the agreement, which was found in December 2020, enables to implement this cooperation in research and innovation over the coming years. Namely, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement caters for the UK's participation in European programs. And this is part 5 of the agreement, which sets the main principles of the UK participation to all union programs, including notably the financial parameters. It is quite simple, and it is important to be very clear on this. In a nutshell, we already have everything agreed in principle. And the only political step that remains now is European Parliament scrutiny. This means that the UK entities will be able to participate in the first calls of Horizon Europe, provided that the protocol is adopted before the signature of the first grant agreements. And this is certainly our expectation. And I really want to insist on this aspect, and everybody who is now online, whether individuals, companies, research labs, universities, and funding agencies based in the UK will be eligible in the first calls of Horizon Europe. So to them, I want to say join. To European researchers and companies, I want to say your British partners are also your strength to excel in Horizon Europe. And the alliances which are built on the Horizon 2020 and the previous research innovation programs are still relevant for tomorrow's cooperation. Now, Richard, if you allow, I very briefly also would like to highlight 3 priority areas for our future cooperation. And I'd like to underline specifically climate change, then digital transitions and the health area. Namely, the EU, just like the United Kingdom, are global frontrunners in the fight against climate change. And we remain united in the belief that global warming constitutes the biggest threat to humanity. As the UK is chairing and hosting COP26, we will be cooperating even more closely this year to set ambitious objectives and actions. And research innovation clearly plays a central role to accelerate the transition, but also to deploy de-risk solutions, engage citizens in social innovation. And why is Horizon Europe the ideal instrument to address these together? First, 35% of Horizon Europe's budget will be contributed to climate objectives. 4 out of 5 agreed missions are directly supporting European Green Deals. And the missions will mobilize both researchers, innovators, and I very much hope also will capture the imagination of Europe's citizens. Now, a further novelty are the green partnerships, which will receive up to 50% of spending under Pillar 2, and they make industry more competitive globally, and they also help to pool resources. So in full, 40% or more on Pillar 2 will go to novel research and innovation clusters. Green transitions, climate, energy, mobility to food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. And by the way, today we are closing Horizon 2020 Green Deal call. It is, of course, has been fully open to participation of UK entities. Now, in a couple of words, I'd like to mention also digital transition, where COVID pandemic has shown how much our lives depend on digital technologies. And as we know, UK is home to some of the most active, dynamic actors in this field. So I see a lot of potential. We also share the same fundamental values about transparency, privacy in this area. This is clear, for example, in the Artificial Intelligence Roadmap, which was published by the UK AI Council earlier this month. And finally, we need to join up the forces to overcome the current pandemic, namely to have preparedness, response, vaccine development, innovative equipment, to name a few, where the UK also has very strong, even unique research innovation capabilities. We've seen now also in the development of the vaccines, for instance. So certainly these are all the areas where we clearly welcome very close partnerships with the UK. And as you can see, there are many channels through which our cooperation will be strong. So I look forward to making really this a reality in 2021.
Okay, thank you very much, Senior. Harriet, let's go to you in London.
Hello from London, and thank you for inviting us along today, Richard and Senior. It's very nice to see you again. So I think, I hope that today is the beginning of a really good new kind of partnership with the UK as an association, in association to the Horizon Europe programme. In many ways, associate status works in a very similar way to our historical relationship. So I think for researchers and businesses who want to participate, hopefully it will feel very similar. But we're really glad to have been able to reach an agreement with the EU on association on Christmas Eve. It was a good Christmas present for everybody to conclude that agreement. And we know that this collaboration is really valued by researchers and businesses in the UK and in the EU for all of the reasons Senior has talked us through. You know, for example, the climate change partnerships through Horizon Europe that she spoke about, that's one of the reasons this was important for us. Obviously not the only one, but a really important one, because climate change is such an important shared challenge, because we're chairing the COP process this year. I think, you know, the COVID pandemic has really shown us the value of collaborative research and research at scale. We didn't know we needed researchers who could produce COVID vaccines really fast, but fortunately we had a research system in place that enabled us to do that with people with the right skills, and we're all very glad, I'm sure, that was there, ready to respond to the challenge that the pandemic threw at us. And, you know, Horizon Europe is a really important mechanism for international collaboration with EU partners and others around the world. So we hope that this associate membership will enable us to keep supporting excellent researchers, innovative SMEs, and work together on these shared challenges. And as Senior said, the UK has a lot to bring here. We have excellent universities, we have innovative businesses, we have many talented researchers based in the UK, many of whom come from the EU and other countries around the world, alongside British researchers. So we really are looking forward to playing a full part in this. And also noting Ronald is here in COST, continuing our membership of COST within that. I mean, on the deal itself, as Senior has set out, we've made our agreement in principle on association. There are some formal steps needed to complete the formal association process. The joint declaration that was put out showed our shared commitment to complete those as quickly as we can, and it's great to hear Senior reinforcing the point that we also hope will be possible to arrange those formal measures quickly, so that it's possible for participation from the beginning of the programme and the very first calls. I think that gives really good certainty for researchers. So I think the most important point for me, and again agreeing with Senior, is that what we're looking to do now is to really make a success of our association for researchers and businesses who are used to participating in Horizon Europe from the UK or with UK colleagues. It should not feel massively different, actually. Many of the kind of mechanics will work in exactly the same way. And we would really encourage researchers and businesses based in the UK and their partners in the rest of the EU to get on and produce some fantastic, excellent proposals to put into this from the very beginning, so that we can make the most of the collaboration opportunities that this offers. And then a couple of words on other things, and then Richard, I'll hand back to you. You know, for us, working with Horizon Europe is part of the UK's collaborative work on R&D more widely. And alongside that, we're also launching our G7 presidency at the moment. We're going to be working on some science collaboration within that, alongside colleagues from the EU and other G7 member states, on things like cross-border collaboration and open science, and how can we work from the pandemic, learning from the pandemic to build a more resilient future. But really, really just glad to be here, glad that we've reached a mutual agreement, and keen that we make a success of this as we start this new chapter in our collaborative R&D efforts.
Okay, thank you very much, Harriet, and thank you, Senior. We're already getting questions in, so I will be adding these as we go along. But first, I wanted to take some time to make sure that we all understand the facts of the matter. Okay, so now I'll ask both of you. Either one of you can answer the question, or you can both answer them. Okay, but to begin with, timing and process. What happens next, actually? You mentioned, Senior, you mentioned the Parliament vote. When is that going to be? what else has to happen before a UK applicant can actually join?
Okay, I would be happy just to run you through the next steps. First, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement is applied provisionally since the 1st of January for a limited period of time, and it will be finalized after receiving the consent of the European Parliament. And on this point, I'm pleased to see we are also joined today with MEP Christian Ehler, whose commitment to Horizon Europe is well known. And I guess that later he would also provide more information on side of the European Parliament. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that a number of annexes and protocols complement the agreement. Namely, for the participation to union programs, there are two additional documents. First, a financial annex, which specifies the implementation of the financial conditions, and then a protocol. And the protocol specifies in which programs the UK participates and also the scope of its participation, as well as some rules which are specific to these programs. This specific protocol is still in a draft form, and it will be formalized by the specialized committee in union program.
Draft form public?
Yes, everything is public, so you can read them online. But why is it still a draft form? This is purely for legal reasons, as we cannot formally adopt the protocol on union programs where there is no basic act in place. So for Horizon Europe, this would mean that also we need the adoption of the program of Horizon Europe Framework Program first. But this means, and I would like to be clear, that nothing remains to be agreed. Everything is agreed in principle. And as said, protocol is also public. So it's among the declarations which are published next to the EU-UK agreement, and it will be an integral part of the agreement once it has been formalized. Okay. And as soon as the protocol enters into force, then the UK will be formally associated to Horizon Europe.
How long will this take?
Well, we do not expect that it will take a long time after the vote of the Parliament, because, as I said, that there will be a specialized committee which will then pass it. But this will be a relatively straightforward. So we expect that clearly this will give time enough, as I said, that the UK participants already participate in the first calls.
In the first calls. Now, your first calls, I know you have an announcement, you're having a formal launch on February 2nd of the program, but the first calls will not actually be issued, as I understand it, till well into the spring, perhaps June. So.
Yeah, and then we need actually those that the first calls, the agreements will be signed by that time, and by that time certainly we will have the UK part of it. And what we've also made sure that we have the transitional mechanisms in the publishment of the calls, which also cater for that then the participants from the UK can already form alliances, as I said, and with the EU participants, and as I said, we encourage that a lot.
So Harriet, if I understand this correctly, then it's sounding like, because the train is moving rather slowly in Brussels at the moment in its own internal cuisine, as it were, that UK researchers probably will they be there on time for the start of the program? That defined as the first calls.
I mean, Richard, you've heard from Senior, that is the intent, and the joint declaration set out an intent to move speedily on these formal processes. So I very much hope that will be possible.
Do you agree that that everything is agreed in principle and there's nothing of substance left to negotiate?
Yes, the negotiations are completed. The agreement is there in principle. we're now working through the formalities to conclude some of the legal documents.
Okay, all right. Well, you both agree on that, so that's a good start. Among the questions that we're getting, just again, this is just facts. Some people are asking, what parts of the program are we talking about? I know that, you know, Horizon Europe is a multifaceted program with different pillars and programs and partnerships and all. But let me ask the question the other way. To Harriet, what can you not participate in, or what will you not?
So we will be participating in pretty much all of the program. There's a couple of small things. So we're not participating in the equity fund in the EIC,
So
and the EU has the ability to make some limited exclusions, but we hope, and Tina may want to comment on this, that those will be very much the exception.
So again, just for background, the equity fund is a new thing that's in the framework program, in which I think so far there's already under Horizon 2020 been something like 400 million committed of the Commission buying shares in little tech companies. So the UK will not be in that equity portion. Will it be in the rest of the European Innovation Council?
Yes, we will.
These are grants. No, the rest of it is normal grants.
Yeah, this is the grants as part of the EIC accelerator.
Yeah.
But in addition, we also have the Pathfinder part of the EIC. Yeah. So as Harriet said, that the scope is full participation to all pillars, to all instruments, with the only exception being namely the investment part of the EIC accelerator.
Well, this may seem a silly question, but why on earth is the UK not in that equity portion?
So,
yeah, Harriet may want to reply on that.
So look, this is a new instrument, and it is a little more financially and practically complicated to participate in an equity instrument as a non-member state. So we did discuss it, but in the end concluded that this would be not something that the UK would participate in.
Well, the UK has its own plans in that regard, yes?
So we have our own domestic innovation offer through Innovate UK, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, all right. But anyway, there is more to the EIC than simply the equity part, but that's an important point for, well, hundreds of little British companies with various innovations. But that's the most significant carve out, is it? It's okay. All the conventional partnerships for research and development, the missions, the European Research Council, the Marie Curie grants, that's all.
Yeah, that's all in. That's all in. Yeah, so that's a very, very small part, which is
okay. All right. Another question that's come in is about the budget. How much does this cost? Harriet, what are you expecting the bill to be, Harriet?
So, I mean, the exact numbers are calculated according to a GDP formula plus fees, and so we'll get all of that notified as the results of the calculations in due course. But it's multi-billions.
Well, we're talking about something just short of 2 billion euros per year, right, on average?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that UK participation is full. So, but and as from reading the text of the document, there's a whole bunch of safety release mechanisms for if the UK takes too much money, or if the UK does not, in its opinion, get enough. But they're not equal. They're not symmetrical. So, explain that.
Well, perhaps I could first start about the rationale. As you are aware, Horizon Europe regulation calls to address any significant imbalances that may arise with an associated country. And therefore, also the UK's association to Horizon Europe follows this logic. So there shouldn't be significant imbalances either way. And the deal specifically then envisages a mechanism of rebalancing. And there are these specific formulas indeed, as you mentioned. And certainly, as I said, that the documents are public, so you can go into that. But if you'd like to clarify any particular aspects, then certainly we would be happy to do that as well.
Okay, well, Signe, but let me just ask you one quick question on the broader international picture here. Then there's there are at the moment 16 countries associated with the Horizon 2020, the predecessor program. And now the Commission has gone and started raising the possibility of Canada and Japan and other countries might join as well. So these new entrants, are they all going to get a formula like this, a GDP formula? Are they all going to be paying on
yeah, well, as you said, that clearly Horizon Europe offers a host of cooperation possibilities to partners from outside of Europe. And clearly association to our program is the closest partnership that we have. Certainly the aspect is also one of the biggest benefits for the UK, reaping also from being associated, because it's an access to its unparalleled growing network of centers of excellence across Europe and beyond. And what we expect is that in addition to the 16 countries that are currently associated, now the novelty is that it's also possible with countries which are located beyond EU's geographical neighborhood, but with whom we share the high level of research and innovation and also the same values. As I said, that what has been in the past is really that there have been net beneficiaries, net contributors to the program. But now what I'd like to be is basically to be budget neutral, meaning that there will be also the formulas really assisting that this would be the case, that there would be the automatic rebalancing system also for other countries. But as there are different categories, we have the EAA countries, we have the exceeding countries, we have the neighborhood countries. So the formulas may have also their specifics related also to the specific relationships that we have with these countries. And also with other programs that they benefit or contribute to.
So just to be clear, this UK deal is not a template for how it's going to go with every other country.
Yeah, that could be specifics also related to the countries which are in other categories.
Yeah, because I could well imagine.
And also those which will be the newcomers to the program, so to speak.
Yes, okay, because I could well imagine that, I know last time we spoke with the Japanese ministry people, they were not expecting any kind of size of contribution of the sort that the UK is doing. So, considerably smaller, more tentative, more experimental. So you will make allowances for this kind of get to know you budgets as opposed to the full participation. Is that right?
This is still to be discussed, but clearly what we take into account in the formula is also the success rate, how to which extent they have been participated, and this is also part of the formula for the UK. So certainly there would be similarities in this regard.
Another question that's come in is about, well, what happens? I mean, you say that the UK is researchers can participate in all parts of the program except the one you mentioned. But what happens if the vast majority of the UK grants are coming into, for instance, the European Research Council for fundamental research, and not so, there's a huge imbalance in what happens. That's something that I know, for instance, German academics have been very concerned about. Is that okay?
Well, actually, what has been agreed between the co-legislators, well, still, as I said, Horizon Europe program still needs to be finally adopted. But basically, there's also the success in different pillars in different part of the program should also be reflected in the budget allocation of the program. So basically, they pay for their participation. In other words, they pay for their participation. So overall, it's an addition. So UK's it's an addition to this 95.9 billion. It's an additional contribution. And as such, the contributions, well, the allocation of the contributions, also then based on the success rate in different parts, will be then reflected also in the allocation of the budget.
Okay, so in that case, just to be clear, if the UK ends up getting €1 billion in grants from the European Research Council, it will not have a negative effect on, say, German or French researchers, because the ERC budget would have increased by $1 billion.
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay, all right. That's many people have been asking that question, actually.
Okay, then what was good to explain that.
Another question that people are asking about is, well, you call it reciprocity, mobility. I mean, there is language in the agreement that requires that the UK allow EU researchers working on a grant to go to the UK, to work in the UK, to be paid on the same terms as the UK. Do I understand that right, Harriet?
So, I mean, on reciprocity and visas, mobility, we've put in place a really good global visa, global talent visa, as a fast-track visa route for scientists and researchers, which has already had really good uptake. And that is part of the UK wanting to make it easy for talented researchers to come to the UK. So we really want to make that an easy thing.
Well, okay, but if I am a Swedish researcher who is participating in a project with somebody at the University of Oxford, can I go and move and be to the UK for the duration of the grant on the certainty that I will get in and be able to work there?
So the global talent visa makes it easy for people to come. So it should make that an easier thing.
Okay, all right. And going the other way, Senior, how does it work if a UK researcher wants to go to Stockholm?
Yeah, that's possible, of course. But may I also, as you asked the question about the reciprocity, the reciprocity also means the access to each other's programs. And as we just explained, UK beneficiaries have access to the entire scope of Horizon Europe program, except this EIC fund, as mentioned previously. And Horizon Europe regulation, as such, also clause for reciprocal participation of legal entities established in the Union programs of associated countries. And therefore, also the EU-UK deal reflects this requirement. And there is a specific article on reciprocity, which is Article 9 of Protocol 1. And this is also a very important principle for our European researchers, innovators. And we will follow that closely, but certainly it's obviously for the UK side to make this work in practice. So certainly would be interested to hear how this could be implemented also in the UK research innovation programs.
All right.
So many of our research programs are open to the world already, and that would obviously include the EU. I mean, in terms of specific programs, we have to work through this on a case-by-case basis, but they are mostly already pretty open.
Well, but Harriet, tell us a little bit more about what the UK is planning more broadly internationally on research. I mean, you know, there's been this talk about the Discovery Fund, which hasn't yet actually appeared in legislation. You know, a basic research program. There's been talk about BARDA, an innovation program, which hasn't yet appeared in legislation. So, what about all of these new programs and plans that have been floated by the government and not yet enacted? What will be their position on EU participation?
So those are all very much under development and work in progress. We have a big program for increasing our R&D spend and our R&D ambition in the UK.
Yes, the intention is what, 2.3% of GDP to get that up? That's right.
Yeah, 2.4. Yes.
2.4.
And you know, some really bold propositions within that. I mean, in general, we're open to talent from anywhere. And as you will know, very many researchers in the UK come from overseas, as well as the many UK origin researchers that we have. And I would expect that to continue.
Well, to be quite specific, let's say with Innovate UK in part of UCRI, can a you know, an Italian company go in with a British partner and still get money from the British program?
So some of that will depend on the exact details of particular schemes and their intent. I mean, we obviously, as the EU will want to do on many fronts, will want to grow innovation in the UK as well. So, you know, those sorts of details need to be worked through on particular schemes as they are developed.
Okay. All right. There are many other questions coming in, and we will get to these in the course of the session. Just one quick factual point. Signe, when will the first calls be, do you hope?
Well, the first calls will also depend on what part. The major part, expect that they will be published most probably at the beginning of April. Okay. But then it will still take time before they close. But that's the yes. Publishment.
Yeah. Okay, so
for the ERC and EIC it could be earlier, but also it will take a time for the closing of the calls.
Okay, the ERC and the ERC calls could be before April, or you mean the closing of them could be earlier?
No, the publishing, the closing of it, yeah.
Okay, right, and for any of these associate, but I mean, you have a whole list of countries now to be talking with. When do these negotiations begin?
Now, as we have the political agreement on the Horizon Europe program, we can already now start with exploratory talks with all the countries, and the official talks can only be launched once the program is adopted.
Who will you start with? Who will you start with? Which countries will you start with?
With all the currently associated countries.
Okay, so they're first.
Yeah, and then also clarifying the interests of these countries, the newcomers who have expressed their interest previously. That now the next step will be that they will send their letters of intent. And then this will be the basis of launching exploratory talks also with them.
Ah, okay. So a formal step is for them to confirm to you, yes, we're interested. Yep. That's the letter of intent. Okay, all right. And Harriet, then a question for you though. We are expecting soon the publication of a vision statement, the Global Britain paper from the government. I think within the next month, is that right? It's expected?
Are you referring to the integrated review?
Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah, that is being worked on, and it's hoped to publish it soon.
What will be the role of research and innovation in that?
I think it will have an important role to play.
What the priority?
Sorry, Richard, I'm not hearing you very well.
Yes, I'm afraid we lost Richard. Perhaps he has to reconnect.
I think he was asking about the integrated review and the role of science, yes? So obviously I can't give the details of what's in a document that is not yet published. But as you will know, R&D and research partnerships have always, and I'm sure will continue to play, a really important role for the UK's place in the world. And I would expect that to continue to be the case.
No, I'm afraid we lost
can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Yeah, yeah, back.
Apologies to the audience. You know, there are limitations to this technology. So in any case, all right. The last question for both of you before I bring in the other panel is, you know, anybody reading the newspapers in the last few days, it hasn't gone well between the UK and the EU. We've had in the last few days, the fight about AstraZeneca and its vaccines. We've had the UK government's apparently not immediately willing to grant full diplomatic status to the EU. I know that we all live in this much more rational world of research and innovation, but what is, I don't know, do you have any general feeling about how this relationship can go? And what is the role of research and innovation in trying to make it go better?
Well, I'm optimistic by nature. and I really believe that research and innovation can be one of the most positive areas of collaboration. Because as we've discussed so far, we have very common interests. We have also an interest in collaboration, and this would be for the benefit of our researchers, of our the companies, also for the benefit of our citizens and our societies. So I really mean it, and I hope that we will really continue our excellent collaboration. As it has been said, and Harriet also mentioned it, it will be basically on the same basis, because the associated partners are on par with the entities coming from the EU member states. So I think we have good reasons to be optimistic.
Harriet?
No, I agree. I'm also an optimist by nature. And, you know, we have been partners on research and innovation for many years, and I'm sure we will be for many years to come. So I think in our part of this complicated adjustment into a different way of relating to each other, I hope that research and innovation can be a really positive piece of collaboration on some of the most important issues facing our countries, but also the world.
Okay, all right. Well, now let's bring in our other panelists in this discussion. As I mentioned before, we are joined by Christian Ehler, a member of the European Parliament from Germany, and one of the two rapporteurs on the Horizon Europe legislation. Julie Maxton, the Executive Director of the Royal Society, Ronald de Bruyn, the Director of the Cost Association, which stands for not money, it stands for Cooperation in Science and Technology, a networking and early stage research organization. And then Hilary Lappin-Scott, the President of the Federation of European Microbiological Societies, which is an umbrella organization of microbiome societies around Europe. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Christian, I'm going to come right to you first, because there was a point that was raised. Apparently, the Parliament is the only reason why we're not all going here already with Horizon Europe. Is that right? What is the Parliament's position on this?
I think the Parliament joins a different birthday party, because that seems to be the birthday party of UK government and the Commission having a new agreement. My birthday party had been taking place as a parliament when we successfully, when the UK was no longer negotiating the substance of the program. We were negotiating with the whole of the academia in the UK. And I can gratulate when we had to the British academia and research organizations, industry, that they succeeded to have an influence on the program. The UK government was not willing to execute. And I say that clearly. This is, I mean, we shouldn't forget that there is a standing track of what politically happened. And so, I mean, it was really the parliament interacting with the civil society and the British academia and industry in substance on the program. There's a lot of handwriting of UK institutions actually in the program, because we're talking just about the access. But the question is, what is the substance of the program? So I think looking positively in the near future, because in troublesome times, civil society managed to get access in the UK, managed to get access to that program, where the UK had been still participating and very successful. And not just, I mean, I just want to set that straight, because before we start the new relationship, this at least rhetoric journey to the 19th century of antagonistic nations and a Cecil Rhodes kind of reincarnation of whatsoever now turns to a more rational idea about the relations between the EU and the UK. And luckily we are back in the 21st century, but I just want to remind us all how fragile that had been. So that birthday party is a success, but basically we went through troublesome times. Well, I'm saying that,
Christian, what is the mood in the parliament about this this deal on Horizon and research?
As simple as the mood of the parliament is, it was our open hand to the British academia, to the ordinary citizens, to the industry, that we didn't follow that rhetoric on antagonistic nations negotiating something. We're in the 21st century. We're in highly integrated societies, academically, economically, also our citizens. And I just want to remind us that this was the effect, the sustaining effect, and not so much what we now agree on the UK participation in the program. And coming to what had been said before on that we are on the same track, so to say, we are facing the same challenges. We hope so. We look ahead. If we see what the UK government had been saying on COVID and the pandemia in autumn and so on, so was not very promising, to be honest, you know, because I mean we are rhetorically we're saying we're facing the same problems. We're referring to COVID, but that hadn't been the case in September or in the beginning of the year, because it had been seen in the UK as a minor strange incident, an assault of civil society to whatever kind of economic perspective, or I mean, so let's reassure us that we are hopeful that we are getting at the same path in the 21st century, but we went through troublesome times. In principle terms, I mean, the parliament is very much favorable to a UK contribution. I mean, we were really negotiating. I'm as a rapporteur and one of the two co-legislators. We did embrace the suggestions which had been coming from UK research organizations and industry. It's in the program at a time where it was fairly impossible even to think about that there is a UK formal contribution to the program, because then it was politically not seen as a weakening of the Brexit idea. And I think I mean, it's birthday parties, there's always a child invited to the birthday party saying nasty things, but I think we should reassure us. And then in more practical terms, I mean, we have two things to consider quite seriously. And that's the one hand, the agreement, where we legally have a close look on the legal basis the Commission was suggesting. We don't think that the Article 218(9), which means no consent, no consultation with the Parliament, is the right legal basis. It's different than we did that with Switzerland, and that we have to consider. Secondly, we think in terms of the substance, it's a little bit of a hybrid situation, because yes, it covers a lot, but it doesn't cover all. On data, exchange of data, we have a provisionally agreement till June and nothing else. On a lot of details, programs related to Horizon, so on the space, on other programs strongly related, we don't have a kind of agreement, and it's not just a formal question, it's also a question of the substance of the program. Then we find it problematic that we see that as a kind of cherry picking, that the UK is participating in Horizon, but not in Erasmus. And this is not a principal question, this is also a question of the citizens of these integrated societies. And we're not buying into that idea for the moment. And then quite formally, because you were asking me to set the situation clear, I mean, even if the Commission and the Council would insist that practically we have to buy in, so either we say no to the principal agreement or we say yes to everything, so also to the access of the special programs. I mean, politically, I can tell you, although I can't speak for the Parliament as an institution, but there will be a broad political majority for the agreement. But if we feel, after thoroughly considering what is the legal basis, that we get blackmailed, then we are going to postpone the start of Horizon, because there we can't get blackmailed, because that's the legal basis, and there we agreed on what would be third-party participation. So clearly, we have to consider that.
Christian, be explicit. What is it that you want to? You refer to blackmail, but what is it that you want to actually happen to ensure the Parliament passage?
It's simply, as we did with Switzerland, that this is 280, Article 280, and then slice 6. So there is a kind of consensus situation between the Parliament and the Council and the Commission on that. So right now we simply have to buy in. Either we say no or yes. The legal basis, the Commission what been referring for the moment is 289, and that means no consent, nothing with the Parliament.
But I mean, honestly, Christian, is it really likely that the Parliament, that there would be enough votes in the Parliament to make this stand on principle and thereby block the program?
No, not for the consent for the Brexit agreement. It is then on the question when we are going to vote the Horizon program in the plenary. Because if we feel that politically, I mean, nobody wants to mess it up in a situation like that. So we most likely going to agree. But if the Commission is going to insist on that there is practically no consultation and no role for the Parliament, as it had been with other agreements, obviously, then we might think a little bit about the legal basis, because without the legal basis, this is approved without any kind of work. Okay, and I'm really saying that we are simply considering that from a legal point of view. We look to the provisions of the agreement so far. We have a lot of questions in terms of that, on ITER, on budget questions, and so. And I think if we find it somehow legally acceptable, then we are fine. But I'm openly saying, we don't buy in that way that one had been negotiated, because it had been as the whole agreement excluding the Parliament, and this is a violation of the treaty.
Okay, well, that's new. Sinja, quickly to come to you. Do you would you like to negotiate right now with Christian?
But perhaps I can just clarify some of the elements, and also the the differences of this UK agreement and the agreements that we have with Switzerland. Clearly, and as I pointed out, the Parliament now will vote on the main agreement. That is the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. which also includes all the important specifics. There is a financial annex which specifies the implementation of the financial conditions. And if one compares it with the agreement with Switzerland, then most of the provisions which are contained in the agreement with Switzerland are not contained at all in the protocol. One, which is in the case of the UK, but actually the part 5 of the main agreement, which will be the normal co-legislation, the normal procedure. And this part 5 contains all these sensitive parts, such as governance, the financing, suspension, termination, sound financial management. Crucially, it indicates that the basic acts are applicable to the participation and that the protocol might not derogate from that. And this setup is similar to the one which is agreed with the EEA EFTA countries. So the protocol basically only specifies in which programs the UK participates, the scope of its participation, as well as some rules which are specific to these programs.
Yes, I think that's understood. But still, to translate for those of the viewers who don't follow this, what is being raised is the issue of the prerogative of the Parliament to speak on the final steps of Horizon Europe, fundamentally. So this is going to be a fight that we're all going to be watching very closely, I think. Julie, if I can come to you right now. You are in London with the Royal Society, 350-year-old or so associate organization promoting science, and you've been deeply involved in this whole debate. What do you think of the deal and what is remaining to be done? You are muted, Julie.
I was just playing by the rules of the game, but I forgot, sorry. So thank you for inviting me to come along today. So can I start with the age of the Royal Society to put it in some kind of perspective? So it's over 350 years old. And if you consider the map of Europe over 350 years ago and consider how it's changed over this period of time, we're confident that scientists will find other scientists in Europe and elsewhere, as they have for over 350 years. The Royal Society had a foreign secretary before the British government had a foreign secretary. So foreign affairs and foreign scientific collaboration was well on the mind of scientists generations ago. So what does the Society think of the deal? First of all, we welcome it, and we welcome the work of the negotiators, Signé and Harriet, who are with us. The Royal Society has always wanted the strongest possible association with Horizon Europe. The success of many fellows of the Royal Society has been based on many grants, both home and abroad. So, but we think that it would be in the interest of everybody, and I'm thinking of what Christian and Signé just had to say, if the association was confirmed quickly. Many scientists want to be really clear, and it was helpful at the beginning when clarity was expressed, but they want to know precisely what they can be in, that it's going ahead and that they can get there.
Just to be clear, do you think the schedule that you've been hearing today is too slow?
Well, it depends, Richard. What I've been hearing is it might be open in the spring. I think actually it's not a matter of speed. I think it's a matter of certainty, which is more important. The last 4 years have been very uncertain for scientists, and what they want is to close that down and to get back to doing what they do best. And I have to say, I want to pay tribute to so many of my colleagues across Europe in the other academies who supported our quest for the closest possible association to Horizon Europe, and wrote letters to the negotiators, etc. I think it shows that scientists stand together and that there is a spirit to this scientific endeavor, which really is a deep spirit of scientific collaboration. And we see it at home, we see it in Europe, but of course Europe has global scientific ambitions, and we want to work with you on global issues, climate change, biodiversity, pandemic, data as well. So I think it's absolutely in the right direction. My plea is get it confirmed quickly. Let's get clarity, and let's the scientists get back to doing what they do best across Europe with each other and in a true spirit of collaboration.
Okay, all right. If I could come next, Signe, you wanted to add something in response.
Well, perhaps just now on the basis now what Julie just said, to come back, namely, I think, and I think it would be really in the interest of all the scientists, researchers, to have the certainty, and I think this is what we now have, because as I said, that basically everything has been agreed. And I could also point out that also the choice of the instrument, why it's namely now the protocol, the advantage, one of the advantages of the procedure is namely that we will have the possibility of fast incorporation of the protocol, which, as I said, has been agreed in principle once the Basic Act has been adopted. So I think this was also behind of the choice of the instrument, really to make this speedy process possible.
Okay. If I could come next to Ronald with the Cost Association, your organization actually predates the framework programs. 1972. It was kind of like one of the first proto-EU efforts to encourage collaboration in science and technology. So what's your take on what you've been hearing in this deal?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Well, first of all, I'm now a bit careful to use the word anniversary, because anniversary or birthday gifts have a certain, let's say, connotation in this conversation. But indeed, the timing, 50 years ago, a group of ambassadors came together and they constructed the idea of research collaboration and put a frame around it, which became cost. Cost is an asset. It's not something financial. European science knows no borders, and that is exactly what Julie was mentioning. Scientists always find ways to collaborate, because science actually, if you do it according to the book, is only interested in the truth. So, and I think that scientists always will reach out to one another. Now, having said that, it's of course very obvious that if you have mechanisms or frameworks in place that facilitate that this is of course adds to a huge benefit, not only of the research community, but ultimately to our society, to tackle all different kinds of challenges. Today, we're looking at climate, we look at a pandemic. The Green Deal is, of course, an important initiative in that respect. So all in all, this is undisputed. The fact that there is an agreement between the UK and the EU is highly welcomed, obviously, by cost. It gives more certainty. As Harriet was already mentioning, the UK is a member of our intergovernmental organization, so we are in that sense autonomous from the EU. However, we are financed 100% by the EU, and that makes us an integral part of Horizon 2020 and also in Horizon Europe. Now, for our, let's say, community, and I talk about roughly 45,000 researchers and innovators that are active in cost, the certainty is already provided at this very moment due to the fact that we have a current agreement with the Commission that runs until the 31st of October this year. That's still, formally speaking, Horizon 2020, let's say, period for us at least. Our Horizon 2020 will start on the 1st of November. And indeed, and following very closely what Signe has just explained, by that time, I think we should be confident that, taking into account all the respective roles of the different institutions involved in this game, we will get to a timely establishment of those protocols and also the association agreements. Let's also bear in mind that many countries in COST, and we have 38, it's not only EU members, but also outside the EU, but are inside Europe. I'd just like to mention the Western Balkan countries as an example, Albania as an example. They are all on the list of the Commission to look at immediately once the formalities have been cleared.
But Ronald, what do you make of what's left to do? I mean, what about, for instance, data was mentioned?
Well, having said that, and that's indeed the point. So if I may use the word Christmas gift instead of birthday gift. So we have a Christmas gift, and we are all welcoming that. But now we are slowly starting to unpack this gift and see what is in it, and also what is not in it. Until a few days ago, we did not find in that package anything about the transfer of personal data. It is now clear that it will be prolonged, but only until the 1st of July, we understand. So we clearly need to have a framework in place for the longer term that allows us as COST, but anyone else, of course, involved in research, to exchange personal data according to...
Ronald, explain, why do we care about that? Why does a researcher care about that?
Well, for example, COST has in each of its countries that are members a COST national coordinator, and these people nominate researchers from their community to participate in the leadership committees of our COST actions. And of course, in the nomination procedure, there is a personal data exchange, and if this is not framed properly, it does not provide the legal basis to do so. So if there would not have been an extension, as we have seen was put in place a few days ago, we would not have the legal basis to exchange any personal data with our British national coordinator. So we already proactively reached out to put in place a nice adequacy agreement, but the decision a few days ago actually made that redundant. But this only applies until the 1st of July. So that is why this needs to be prolonged even further. And there is a couple of other things that we noticed in this package. The part of the visa was already mentioned, and in generic terms, we were given a little bit of assurance, but let's be very practical. For long stays, UK residents will be required to apply for a visa if they stay longer than 90 days in the EU. But what happens if the short-term scientific missions in COST, and there are mobility schemes that take much longer, that go beyond that period? So I think this is something to look at. I'm not saying that this is a big issue or this is a blocking issue. It simply requires appropriate attention, so there is no difficulty with this mobility. And then there is also, but this is more on the practical side, networking in COST entails usually a lot of travels. And we also have to take into account that, of course, the passenger rights, as enshrined in EU legislation, are no longer applicable when traveling to the EU. So from the UK to EU and vice versa. The health insurance card, which used to be in place, is no longer valid for UK residents in the EU. These are things that are not necessarily directly related to research, but affect the research community in conducting their networking activities. And if you allow me, Reg, just one more. The .eu domain names can no longer be on the name of a UK institute. They already had to be transferred earlier this month to institutions within the UK. Otherwise, they would be closed. So these are just a few things that we mentioned. It's not show-stopping, but it is something that really requires some attention, and there may be things that we have not even seen.
But then this, I think, gets to the issue that Julie raised about the need for more certainty and clarity. I mean, it's all very well to be talking about, well, it'll get sorted out in time, but you're raising a lot of very specific issues that had better get sorted out if this is to be resolved. Before Harriet, before Signe and you come in on response to this, Hilary, let me come to you. Hilary Lappin-Scott from the Federation of European Microbiological Societies, an umbrella organization of about 50 societies across Europe that deal with it. Hilary, you are the only researcher, actually, current researcher in this panel. Oh my goodness, what do you think about this?
Well, yeah, obviously I've been, and thank you for the opportunity, and it's good to work with you all. I've been thinking about all of the many people that are on the line now that are researchers across the EU, across the UK, and all of the businesses as well, that are now sitting trying to work out what does this all mean. So I would say for the first kind of 45 minutes, from the presentations and the questioning from Harriet and Signe, I thought, you know, fantastic. We're hearing about mobility, reciprocity, you know, close partnership. I was hearing comments like, oh, researchers really shouldn't be able to tell any difference. There shouldn't be any holdups. But I'm also bearing in mind too, of all of my many colleagues, as my, you know, being playing a leadership role in a university, where colleagues would come up and say, well, we're already being massively affected by looking to apply for EU funding. And the UK has been massively affected over the last few years. For example, because there wasn't the clarity there, should EU universities still be contacting UK universities? I still think there's a big legacy around all that. So I'm an optimist by nature too, and I want this to work. We need this because to address those big research priorities that Signe was mentioning, and many of those are the areas that I work in myself, we only find those solutions by having interdisciplinary approaches and cutting right across, not considering that people would be a lone researcher anymore, but big international collaborative teams. So it's how can we get that clarity across to all of the EU businesses, the university colleagues in the EU, as well as in the UK, to say, yes, this is now, how can we show that it's quickly working so that we start to get much more of people being willing to look to find those solutions to all these incredibly challenging global problems that we have right now. Something that's really on my mind at the moment too, and this is perhaps a little more for Harriet, is that the UK's had a strong voice in terms of programme planning and shaping that. And I just can't see how we would still have that input too. So, you know, we want to do the very best, and I'm not making political points. I'm thinking about all of those in the STEM communities that want to be part of these programs, both sides of the channel. How can we clearly show that it is all open and that we can encourage as quickly as possible superb international collaborations to get in exciting solutions for the global challenges that have been mentioned?
Well, that's a really good point you're raising, and I will ask the whole group, what needs to be done in order to get UK scientists and entrepreneurs to come back into the program, and what needs to be done to get EU researchers, their counterparts, to recognize that it's okay now? Julie, you mentioned clarity. I'm not hearing it at the moment. So what else?
I mean, to my mind, it's I'll just leap in as I've still got my mic open. It's how can we get those communications? Because it's all well and good for at the political level making statements to show, yes, it's open and we've had negotiations and now we're having a vote with the Parliament, but how can we get those clear comms to the research community and to the businesses that are such an intricate part of this to show, yes, we're all ready, let's really push, how we can show that it is a welcoming way forward?
Well, Christian.
I mean, as I said, and I don't want to tackle the birthday party, but as I said, we truly believe that beyond what had been negotiated quite formally between the European Union and the UK, and we accept any independent political decisions in the UK and so. But still, from a Parliament's point of view, we're in the 21st century. And we had been seeing that like that continuously. And if you look not to the access agreement, if you look actually to the program itself, you can find wording from British academia, from LERU, from the industry. We had been talking to Rolls-Royce, to a lot of stakeholders. I mean, look to the whole Airbus consortia. You might find wording of that. We draw conclusions out of the old program. And I think that is exactly the kind of open hand that is the idea about the European Parliament, that we never follow just this formal path of saying it's antagonistic nations or regions or constructions like the EU negotiating the other. We arrived in the 21st century. And we had any interest that the exchange of really the stakeholders is core to the substance of the project. And I think even the Commission, to some extent, although formally in negotiation, never had a close ear for actually the stakeholders from the UK during the negotiations. So I think I can reassure you that beyond what had been formally negotiated, there's a co-decision process. And I think still, although we don't want to compromise, question, or we see that as a tactical move or whatsoever to question the Brexit, but we see ourselves obliged to the idea of integrated societies in the 21st century, specifically in academia. So I can reassure you that you will have a saying, even quite formally, because as co-legislator, we can talk and take to everyone and take into consideration everyone. And even in terms of the way we did the consultation, we did consult all relevant EU institutions in the course of the negotiations of the program, although formally the UK even hadn't been part of the Union anymore. So I think there is from the European side, there is a true belief, not to grant something or having a kind of patronizing something and so on. So it's our true belief that this is an expression of integrated academic societies worldwide. And so we were going to contribute that. There is no tactical move on. We didn't want to buy into that kind of idea of antagonistic nations. And I think that had been an important achievement over time. That's the reason why we have an agreement now, and why the Parliament in the end is going to help that agreement is going to work. But I just want to say once, I mean, we camouflage a little bit the questions. We are concerned about the visas, because we heard just vaguely something about the visa questions. For now, it's not there. We vaguely heard something about reciprocity, because we don't know the programs on the UK side and how accessible they will be. We're very careful on reciprocity as a word, because it's this kind of 19th century thinking. But still, we believe that we have to consider the interest of both sides, that the program on both sides as open as possible. And that are things to consider, and not something where we do something more complicated. I think that is the reason why we have a close look on that. And then we try to facilitate perhaps even more cooperation, which is foreseen in formal terms in an access agreement.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. Harriet, I want to come to you. specifically. So what is the UK government going to do to reassure and encourage UK researchers to play again?
So Richard, thank you. And actually, one of the reasons I wanted to join today was absolutely as part of our efforts to really encourage UK researchers and businesses and their collaborators across the Horizon Europe programme to work together and take the opportunities that UK participation as an associate will bring. So we are going to have a number of efforts on that. We're working with colleagues like Julie and others in the research community to really get the message out that the UK is associating, and that for the researchers and businesses who want to participate, it won't feel that different.
So what are you planning? An advertising campaign, or what do you mean to get the word out?
So the details will follow, but we're going to put out, we're thinking about things like webinars and fact sheets that can really help people just to understand the practicalities of this. So that those who are less close to all of the detail of the negotiations than us can easily understand it.
Well,
but I'm really grateful for the chance today to talk with people about this.
Okay, a direct question. Some countries, other third countries, have in the past or are considering actually making small grants available simply to write applications, so to kind of reduce the risk of loss. Are you considering that?
That's an interesting thought, Richard. We're thinking about all the possible ways that we can encourage people. The other thing I just wanted to pick up actually from Hillary's comments was the point about influence. So associates do sit on many of the committees alongside member states. They obviously don't have all the rights that a member state would, but we would absolutely hope to be able to be a constructive part of all the discussions about how to make the best of the opportunities of this programme. And also UK researchers are able to participate as experts and evaluators. So we would hope that colleagues from the UK would be able to contribute in that way.
Okay, then Senior, let me come to you then. What will the Commission do to reassure and encourage EU researchers that it's okay to play again with the UK?
Well, first of all, what I'd like, because now we've had this discussion for quite some time, so I'd really like first to thank you, Science Business, for organizing it, because I think that it has contributed also of getting the messages through, certainly because it's the online event which can be followed by several or the participants, those interested in Horizon Europe on the UK side, but also the other way around. So you certainly need to promote that on both sides of the channel. And certainly that's why I was really also very clear in my messages that, now please join, now the UK researchers, participants, but also a very clear word to the participants on the EU side. And well, as you know, well, we've had the UK as part of the program because, well, they have continued to participate in Horizon 2020 even after the Brexit vote. And certainly, as our program already has been open to the world, and we've consulted also with, it's been open for consultation to the participants from all over the world. Certainly, there has been the possibility to influence the program as such. And as Harriet mentioned, also now many of these bodies that will discuss the program will also be open for associated countries. ERA, European Research Area, I'd like to mention, where associated countries are the partners like the EU members, and certainly now that we have also a very ambitious approach to European Research Area, well, certainly the UK participants will be very important and can also contribute to that. But certainly on the Commission side, we also will now actively promote that also among the EU participants.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. We're just about done. Julie, I'm going to come to you just as the final word on this from your perspective. Are you going to is the Royal Society going to urge and recommend that its members now go ahead now and start preparing applications? What do you think should be the next step from the point of view of the research community?
I think that we can give assurance to the research community about the commitments that have been made, about the good faith under which they have been made, and about the determination to go forward to the end. I think everything we've seen today, and I really respect Christian's point of view as well, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, adopting Ronald's nothing's a showstopper, we think, and knowing how much the scientific community want to participate in Horizon Europe and have been urging us, and we've been working for over 5 years now to try and get the best possible association. I think we can give them some clarity over it, but I would still call for, as Harriet mentioned, we need more fine-grained clarity, because people will have different levels of risk appetite. Some will go forward on less information, others will want the fine details. So I think to get everybody in, more fine details, but we can, the front runners, I think we've got enough, and they will be eager to participate.
All right. Well, thank you very much, all. We have gone through many of your questions that you've put in, speaking to the audience, but there are some that are not, that we have not got to. And what we at Science Business will do, we will go through all of these questions, and we will publish basically a Q&A based on it. Senior and Harriet, we'll send them to you. If you can add clarity to these questions, we will publish answers, okay? And we at Science Business will be, of course, continuing to watch all of this very closely. As we've seen in the pandemic, international science cooperation is essential for the future of all of us. And so, although we've gone into a lot of details about protocols and sections and prerogatives, we're actually talking about something incredibly important for the future of all. So thank you very much for joining us. See you soon. Goodbye.
Many thanks. Bye-bye.
For friends in the UK, with cost, it's okay to play. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.